Hey guys, before the video gets underway, there are time codes in the description, and I will pin a comment in the comment section here. You can skip around and look at what I'm talking about here on this video, because there's a couple of little different things. Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is Downtown Steven Brown, and in today's video, we're going to talk about that mystery player that Elliotte Friedman keeps hinting at. But just really quickly, the Toronto Marlies have been very busy over the last couple of weeks, signing guys to contracts and amateur tryouts. James Hardie in particular was a guy who I thought that the Maple Leafs were going to target in the middle to late rounds of this past year's NHL entry draft. He's 19 years old right now. He's 5'11", 176 pounds, and a winger. But if you guys remember back to when I was doing videos about the draft in early to mid-October, I had my friend Anthony Venna on the channel, who's a data tracker for the Mississauga Steelheads, and I had him on to talk prospects, and I asked him about James Hardie, and he had nothing but great things to say about this player. If you're interested in hearing what specifically he had to say about him, I'll tack that little bit of the interview that I did with him in October at the end of this video. But this is a player who had 63 points and 34 goals in 59 games in his first year of being draft eligible, and he was just passed over for some reason. So just a little bit of a correction on the James Hardie side of things. He is signed to an ATO, an amateur tryout contract with the Toronto Marlies, which means he will skate with the team until the Ontario Hockey League season starts, and then he will be returned to the Mississauga Steelheads. But still, a little bit of a closer look at this guy to decide whether or not the Maple Leafs want to use a draft pick on him as an overage player this upcoming draft. I was kind of disappointed that the Maple Leafs had 4 or 5 picks in the 6th and 7th round last year and that they didn't use one of them on James Hardie, but it looks like they're going to get a strong look at him as he did sign an amateur tryout contract with the Toronto Marlies, and hopefully he really impresses. But in terms of even strength primary points per games played, and what this stat is showing us is that if you're highly ranked in this stat, you got the puck on your stick a lot, and when you got it, you're scoring goals, or you're passing it a lot, and when you're passing it a lot, other guys are scoring directly off your passes. James Hardie was 33rd in terms of even strength primary points per games played out of all first-year draft eligible players, and he was just passed over on. He was 19th out of CHL first-year eligible players, and he was still passed over with. He's in company of guys that were drafted in the first round, guys like Hendrix Lapierre, guys like Connor Zary, guys like Dawson Mercer, even Jacob Perreault. Just looking at the names here, there's lots of really highly touted prospects. Maybe he's not as well-rounded or as good overall as those guys, but in terms of scoring, yeah, he's right with them. But back to the reason why you clicked on this video. Elliotte Friedman almost guarantees the Leafs are going to add at the trade deadline on Tim Sid, a winger they can play in the top 6 with Matthews Marner or Tavares Nylander. I have a name written down on a piece of paper, but can't say who. Elliotte, if you're gonna go around saying stuff like this, well, thank you. At least it's a starting point. But come on, man. Just cut out the middle work here and give us the name. You're really gonna make me sit here and do all this work figuring out who this player is? Well, it's actually not as difficult as you might think to figure out a list of about 5 to 8 players of who this could be. So the first thing I did is come over to the cap-friendly free agent page here, and I sorted it by forwards and guys who are going to be UFAs at the end of the year, because that just makes sense, right? A lot of the guys who are traded at the trade deadline is because their contract expires at the end of the year. Just to throw some names out here, you got guys like Ryan Getzlaf, Taylor Hall, Eric Stahl, Tanner Pearson, Matthias Janmark, Alex Iafallo. And just because Kyle Dubas is a sneaky bugger, and we know that he likes acquiring guys with multiple years left on their deals, because if you go back, editing the video here and realize that another guy who the Maple Leafs acquired with more than just 1 year left on his deal in and around the trade deadline was Jake Muzzin a couple of years ago. So it is quite possible that the Maple Leafs are interested in a guy who has more than 1 year left on his deal. But the problem with acquiring a guy with more than 1 year left on his deal, or even a guy who's set to be an RFA at the end of his deal in the next year or two, is that you would have to protect them in this year's expansion draft. And I know I've said here on the channel that this is the year, if any, to absolutely go for it and load up if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, because I'll repeat it again, all the Maple Leafs have to do to be 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup is be the best team in Canada. And right now, they are undisputed, hands down, the best team in Canada. All they have to do is continue doing that, and they will be 8 wins away from the Stanley Cup. They'll be 4 wins away from the Cup Finals. The Tampa Bay Lightning last year gave up 2 first-round picks and a couple of prospects for Barclay Goodrow and Blake Coleman. And a lot of people attributed those two trades as to the reason why they won the Stanley Cup. Those two players are not the reasons why they won the Stanley Cup, but the Tampa Bay Lightning were two players like those guys away from winning the Stanley Cup. If you're two guys away from being legitimate Stanley Cup threats, acquire those two players. Whatever the cost is, go out and pay it. Tampa paid a king's ransom for those two guys, but they won a Stanley Cup, and they were able to retain both of them. So now, they paid those two first-round picks and the prospects, or whatever it was to get those two guys, but they still have them. They've won a cup already, and they're looking pretty poised to win another one this year. But also, I wouldn't be giving up stupid, ridiculous assets for guys who have more than 1 year left on their deal because of the expansion draft, like I already explained. Now, if you're looking at the names on the screen who I've already read out, in terms of goals above replacement, there are some interesting options here. Ryan Getzlaf, Taylor Hall, right off the bat, not the most likely out of these players, but they are good players that I would be interested in if they were available, but those teams would have to retain 50% of their salary right off the bat. And remember, because the trade deadline is in and around the middle of the season, their contracts are prorated. So if he's making $8 million, you prorate that about half to about $4 million. They retain another 50%. Now that's only $2 million, and the Maple Leafs had about $1 million or so to work with. They would have to send money back the other way, but it's conceivable that they could make that trade work. It would just be a little bit more complicated. And also, just another thing to keep in mind, I'm not saying that any of these guys are available. I'm just looking at players who would make sense to maybe possibly be traded this year and spitballing. But you have to remember the US-Canada border whenever you're talking trades. Players coming from the United States to Canada, I'm not sure if it's going to change as more people are vaccinated. I don't know. No idea. But right now in the NHL, players that are coming over from the United States into Canada have to quarantine for 2 weeks. The Pierre-Luc Dubois-Patrick Laine trade happened on January 23rd, and Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't play his first game with the Winnipeg Jets until February the 9th. So for convenience sake, when you're looking at the names that I threw out here on this list, only one of the names belonged to a Canadian team. And the thing to remember is that Friedman said that they would like a winger that can play in the top six with Matthews Marner or Tavares Nylander. Can we think of a player who's played on both of those lines in the last couple of seasons, has been very versatile and had success basically wherever he's played? Zach Hyman. If only the Maple Leafs could get another Zach Hyman. If only there was another Zach Hyman. If only there was a way to clone Zach Hyman. Well, looking at this chart of forward micro stats from the 2019-2020 season, what makes Zach Hyman Zach Hyman? Well, he's a relentless puck retriever and forechecker. He doesn't really handle the puck a lot, he doesn't really skate with the puck a lot, but he's really good at going in there and getting it back. Watch the switch, keep an eye on the blue bars there. Tanner Pearson is a similar player to Zach Hyman in the sense that they are both relentless on the forecheck. 6'1", 201-pound left winger from Kitchener, Ontario. This would be the absolute perfect ad for the Toronto Maple Leafs to make an already strong forward-checking team, which they are this season, gets even stronger with a guy like Tanner Pearson, who has 8 points in 17 games played, 45 points, 21 goals in 69 games last year, 8 points in 17 games with the Vancouver Canucks in the playoffs. Are for the people who wanted Sam Bennett because of his playoff numbers, is 8 points in 17 games good enough? In 2013-2014, towards the beginning of his career, 12 points in 24 games with the Kings when they went and won their second Stanley Cup. Is that good enough? Looking into his 2021 stats might not be the best of ideas just because the entire Vancouver Canucks team just seems to be absolutely rotten and miserable, and they're like 2 or 3 more games away from Jim Benning getting fired and them just kind of retooling, and they might have to give up a guy like Tanner Pearson. Canucks fans, if you're watching this video, if it makes you feel better, after we win the Stanley Cup, you can have him back next season. But just for this season, while you guys are sucking, can you please loan him to us for a reasonable rate? I'm willing to pay. And at $3.75 million, that's a contract that the Maple Leafs can afford. The purpose of this video was to do the investigative work. I have no idea what they would have to give up to acquire this player. I don't know what they would have to pay to acquire him, but I do know that I would be willing to pay a little bit more if Vancouver retained half of his salary, because all that means is that it makes it more likely that the Maple Leafs would be able to add another player after him. Honestly, You get Joe Thornton back from injury, you get a guy like Nick Robertson back from injury, you're probably okay just adding one forward, but you know what? I'm greedy. Why not add two? I'm a huge baseball fan and a huge Toronto Blue Jay fan. In 2015, they didn't just add Troy Tulowitzki, they also added David Price. The Tampa Bay Lightning last year didn't just acquire Blake Coleman, they also acquired Barclay Goodrow. And all I'm saying is that it would be really cool and video game-like if John Tavares passed the Stanley Cup to Joe Thornton, who passed it to Jason Spezza, who passed it to Eric Stahl or Ryan Getzlaf. That's all I'm saying. It would be really cool. Who then passed it to Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, and so on and so on. So what do you got, Friedge? I've laid all my cards out on the table. I spent 2 hours trying to figure out your very useful but vague rumor here. By the way, 2 hours trying to figure this out. Leave me a like on this video here. Put in a lot of effort here. What do you got, Friedge? Are you gonna tell us the name or not? What I'm really trying to say is that I need to know if I was right, because I think that I'm right. You know, a couple of years ago, me and Andrew Pillock sat down on a Skype call, and we went over the rumor that Chris Johnson processed and said that the Maple Leafs were in on a big-name, right-handed shooting defenseman a couple of years ago at the trade deadline, and we narrowed it down to, like, a list of, like, 4 or 5 guys just by doing the same process of elimination that I just did here in this video, and we were able to put Tyson Barrie on that list. We figured it out once. I think I did it again. Friedge just sent that little inkling out to be annoying and to tease it, but I looked at it and saw it as a challenge, and I think that I figured it out. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know if you think that I figured it out or not, and what I said makes sense. Make sure, like I said, to leave me a like on the video if you did like it, and subscribe for more, because more is always on the way. And guys, remember, can't slip one by me. I am so sure, I know the video's carrying on here and I already said goodbye. I am so sure, I know it in my bones, that it is Tanner Pearson. I just know it.
James Hardie is a flat-out scorer. The guy's gonna make his living scoring goals, as you can see at 34 last year, with unbelievable feat already as a draft-eligible player, comparable to some of the guys up at the top. He drives a line by himself. He can move through the neutral zone, puts pucks on net like unbelievably well. He's going to be probably, I think at least he can make it into like a middle 6 scoring role. And I think he's going to show us all that he can do that.